word help means to make it easier for someone to do something by offering one's service or resources or assistance. So this means that when a person helps me, whatever I am aiming to do because of their help is going to make it easier. Also, in our previous studies, we talked about the word succor that is found in the book of Hebrews, and it means to assist and to support in times of hardship and distress. And that's what God is there for. And he's more than willing and ready to help us in our times of hardship and in our moments of distress. Succor in the Bible, we say it means to run to the rescue and to bring aid. We said in our earlier studies that if a person runs to your rescue and they don't bring aid, and they don't bring what they need to assist you, if I'm drowning and you need a rope to throw out to me, a life raft, and you come and you don't have it, then chances are I'm going to sink and die. So when God shows up, when we ask his help, he comes to our rescue and he brings the aid that we need. Isaiah 31 and 1 reads, "Woe to them that go down to Egypt for help." Egypt is said to be symbolic of the world. So it is when that we need help that God instructs us that the first place we should look is to him. Not to the world first. Can God use the world to assist us? The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. God is commander over all. Nobody can be his instructor or his counselor. So he has the right to use whatever he wishes to. And there are times that he can use the world to assist us. And I'm sure that there have been many times that he has used the world to assist his people. But the first place that God wants us to look is not to the world, but to him. So this is why he says, woe to them that go down to Egypt for help and stay on horses and trust in chariots, because they are many. And in horsemen, because they are very strong. But they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord. And if you keep on reading it, he will say, as you go down further, I think it's around about the third verse, if we were to keep on reading, it talks about how the Egyptians are men and not God. It talks about how the horses are flesh and not spirit. But God is spirit and he's life. He has the ability to bring life to dead things. He can turn a desert into an oasis. Remember how he caused water to run out of a rock? He instructs a man to cut down a certain bush. When water is bitter, put it in the bush and the water becomes sweet. That's why we say every day with Jesus, I declare is sweeter than the day before. Hebrews 4. Hebrews 4. So we see how that the Lord wants us to look first to him, always. Hebrews, the 4th chapter, beginning at verse 14 talks about our great high priest. And that is Jesus, who has finished his work in the earth, but his work was not finished. Because when he left here, the Bible records that he's sitting on the right hand of the Father. And he's interceding for us right now. Why? Because we haven't made it in yet. Now God, he's interceding for us that we may completely make it in and enjoy the eternal life that he has provided for us. So verse 14 of Hebrews, the 4th chapter says, seeing then that we have a great high priest that is passed into the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. And it says, let us hold fast our profession. Hold fast to God and don't let nobody convince you that you ought to let go. My God. Verse 15 says, for we have not a high priest which cannot be touched with the feelings of our infirmities. Remember, God came down through Jesus, took on a body of flesh just like ours. And everything that we experience in our bodies, all the infirmities, he was subject to that. He felt all of those things. So we have not a high priest which cannot be touched with the feelings of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. This means that he overcame. And this is why he says to us, greater is he that's in you than he that is in the world. And he gives us the encouragement that if he have overcome the world, then we ourselves can do the very same thing. Can I get a good amen? Verse 16 says, let us therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace. In the Old Testament, the priests would offer sins for the nations and the people once a year. And he would pass the holy place, the outer court, and he would go into what they defined in the tabernacle as the holies of holies. This is where the Ark of the Covenant sat. And this is where the glory of the Lord and the presence of God was. So once a year they were slain an innocent lamb that was blemished and without spot. The lamb couldn't have a spot on it nowhere, because what they did in the Old Testament was symbolic, and it was types as to what was to come. And the lamb represented Jesus who was to come. And it couldn't have a spot or blemish in it. And the priest would slay this innocent lamb, and he would take the blood and he would go in and he would put it on the altar for the sins of the nations. Now, if this priest was not complete with God, they had a rope tied around him. And if he would step into the presence of God and wasn't right before God and God requirements, he would die there and they would pull him out. But now, under the new covenant that we are living in under grace, when Jesus said, Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit. And mind you, they didn't kill him, because he said if I wanted to, I could call 12 legions of angels to my rescue. He let them know that you are not taking my life, but I'm laying it down. He said, destroy this body. And he said, in 3 days I will rise and raise it up again. They thought he was talking about the temple, but he made it plain, I'm talking about my body. However, the temple in Jerusalem would go through some changes whenever he died on the cross. Because whenever he said it was finished, that massive curtain that was in the temple, and in your time, take time to read how thick it was. there was no way that a man could tear it. It would have been a very difficult task just to cut it in two. The only way that it could split in two like that, it had to be an act of God. And when he said it was finished, the curtain was split wide open. This was letting us know that now as God's people, we are made priests. We can go in before the presence of God and obtain whatever we need. So that's why it says here in verse 16, let us therefore come boldly. And boldly means with freedom, without reservation, without feeling that you are going to be fussed at or somebody is going to rebuke you. A lot of time a child would not go to their mother and father if they feel like their mother and father is going to scold them or rebuke them. But if they feel confident that they can come to their parents with anything, I don't care what it is, they will go to that parent and they will tell them. I always tell people that are raising children, mine are grown now, and I want you to know that it was not an easy task. I'm glad I just have grandchildren now, because I can love them and kiss them and send them home. Can I get a witness? One of my friends told me that grandchildren is God's reward to you for not killing your children. Because if you had to kill them, you wouldn't have got no grandchildren. So God said, since you didn't kill them, now I'm going to reward you with grandchildren. You get the point? Now, the point that I really wanted to make is that when a child feels free to come to their guardian and tell them anything, they are not going to hesitate. Now my advice to parents when they're raising their children when they're little, you can pick up a belt, you can swing it at them, you can threaten them, and they'll get in line. But after a certain age, they'll look at that belt, yeah, right. And especially when they get big enough, you can spank them, but all you're doing is hitting them. And some of them be so rebellious about what you're doing, they'll sit there and they won't even cry. So just go ahead and beat me. I'm going to show you how tough I am. So my advice to parents is when you're raising children and they get to an age, the old folks say when they start smelling the must, or they start feeling themselves. But really everything on the inside of them is a war there. If you could see their hormones and everything just flipping through their bodies and in their mind, one moment they feeling like they are an adult and the next moment they just want to come sit on your lap. You ever had them when they were teenagers, they didn't want to be near you, and then at one moment, Mom and Daddy, can I just sit on your lap? They're going through a lot of changes, and when they're going through those changes, I tell parents that those are the times when you want them to be able to tell you anything. And they will come to you and they will tell you some stuff, but you got to be willing to hear them and then guide them in the right way without scolding them and rebuking them. The other day, our grandson Joseph is 14 now. And when you get 14, you hit high school, you're going to hear a lot and you're going to experience a lot. But he felt the freedom. He feels the freedom to go to his parents and tell them anything. And he came to me and Rita, and the stuff that he was telling us, the average teenager would never tell their parents something like that. But he felt like that he could come and tell us anything. And when they feel that way, then you can properly guide them the right way. You getting this? So God is the same way. When he says, come before me boldly, this means he wants us to come to him with freedom. I have been taught for many years that we are not supposed to question God. But we can. Who can we question besides God? So God wants us to come to him boldly means with freedom. Even when we are frustrated, We got moments about things that we can't understand. We're angry, we're frustrated. Those are the moments that we really need to come to him. And he wants us to come to him in those moments freely. And he will not scold you or rebuke you. But he will, more than likely, give you the right advice and the right guidance through his word. But if we had to never come to him the way we were feeling, he would have never had the opportunity to direct us right. God is there all the time. He promised he'll never leave us nor forsake us. He's always there to assist us, to make things easier for us. He's not going to do everything for us, but he'll aid and he'll help us in whatever we are seeking to accomplish according to his will and his plan. Got two scriptures in two places that I want to share with you today, and then we are done. Let's go to 1 Samuel, the 7th chapter, where we are going to be reading verses 1 through 17. 1 Samuel, the 7th chapter, where we are going to be reading verses 1 through 17. 1 Samuel, 7th chapter, verses 1 through 17. We won't read that much. We'll start at verse 9. So I'm going to walk you through from 1 to verse 9. This was the time when God was choosing to lead his people by judges. And during this particular time that we are going to be reading from the 9th verse to the 17th verse, was when he had chose Samuel to be the judge over his people. Now remember, he had chose Gilead, and Gilead, he chose him to bring victory to his people by way of warfare. He chose Samson to bring victory to his people by the strength that he had. Remember, Gilead defeated a whole army with just 300 men and the assistance of God. And Samson, mighty in his strength, picked up the jawbone of an ass and killed, I think it was about 1,000 Philistines or more. He was massive in his strength. And his later time, because he got a haircut in the wrong barbershop, Delilah put out his eyes and he couldn't see. But the Bible records that his hair grew back. And when they was in, I believe it was the temple of Dagon, and they was mocking him, and he asked them if they would lead him to the two massive pillars that held up the temple. And it was there that he asked God to strengthen him one more time. Glory to God. And he killed more in his death than he did while he was living. But God here chooses Samuel to deliver his people by prayer, by calling on his name for help. Now, to walk you through verses 1 to 9, Samuel had told the people that if you get rid of your false gods that you have built up to Aristotle and Baal, that God will hear you and he will help you. So they came together and decided that they would fast and pray, and they would commit themselves to the Lord. Messabor is the place that they came and gathered. Now, the Philistines that was the enemy of God heard that they were there. Now, they were there repenting, fasting, getting themselves right with God, and the Philistines show up. Isn't that just like the devil? Just as soon as you make up your mind that you're going to commit your life totally to God, he shows up to try to disrupt things. Now, mind you, that Israel wasn't meeting there to fight. They met there to get closer to God. But the enemy shows up while they don't have their weapons. They don't have no type of defense. They can't defend themselves. They are vulnerable. Just like him, isn't it? That he shows up at times when he thinks that he can catch you vulnerable. And he might can catch us vulnerable, but he can never catch God vulnerable. Now we are going to start at verse 9. Are you ready? And Samuel took a sucking lamb and offered it for a burnt offering, holy unto the Lord. And Samuel cried, meaning that he asked God for God's help. And Samuel cried unto the Lord for Israel. And notice how it says in the last part of the 9th verse, and the Lord heard him. So God hears us when we cry on him for help. And as Samuel was offering up the burnt offering, the Philistines drew near to battle against Israel. Remember their vulnerability now. But remember, they had asked Samuel, these Philistines is getting ready to attack us. Don't you stop calling on God, but call on God to give us victory. And this is what Samuel did. And as Samuel was offering up the burnt offering, the Philistines drew near to battle against Israel. But notice what the Lord is going to do. He knows that they didn't come there to fight, and he's going to defend them. But the Lord thundered with a great thunder on that day upon the Philistines, and discomfited them. And they were smitten before Israel. And the men of Israel went out of Mesopor and pursued the Philistines and smote them until they came under Bethkar. And Samuel took a stone and set it between Mesopor and Shem, and called the name of it Ebenezer, and called the name of it Ebenezer, saying, hitherto has the Lord helped us. Anytime God helps us, we always want to remember that time. And that's what Samuel was doing. Samuel said we don't never want to remember, forget how God helped us in this moment. So it's always a good thing to be thankful unto God and to remember the moments that he had helped us. Because there will always come the time when you're going to have to call back from your past what God has already done. That's why we say if God done it once, he'll do it again. Verse 13 says, so the Philistines were subdued, and they came no more unto the coast of Israel. And the hand of the Lord was against the Philistines all the days of Samuel. Now remember that God is using Samuel as he judged his people. And his weapon is not that he is a mighty general and know how to fight. His weapon is not his massive strength like Samson, but his weapon is prayer. And his religion, what he believes. Right now, the United States is the most powerful nation upon the earth. And they think that because of their warheads and all the other great technology that they have, that's what makes them strong. But I'm going to tell you what makes America strong. What makes America strong is the church of the living God that's over here in America, in this earth. And it's our prayers that's sustaining us, and that's more powerful than any weapon that they could ever come out with. It will beat it every time. What we believe and our confidence, our faith and our prayers in God will overrule anything that a scientist or anybody could ever invent. Can I get a good amen? And the cities, verse 14, and the cities which the Philistine has taken from Israel, watch this, was restored. It's amazing how God will fight for you, and then that which the enemy has stole from you, God got the power to restore it. It was where Israel were restored to Israel, from Ekron even to Gath, and the coasts thereof did Israel deliver out of the hands of the Philistines, and there were peace between Israel and the Amorites. Isn't that something? When a man ways please the Lord, he'll make his enemies be at peace with him. And Samuel judged Israel all the days of his life. And he went from year to year in the circuit to Bethel and Gilgad and Mesabel, and judged Israel in all those places. And his return was to Ramah, verse 17. For there was his house, and there he judged Israel. There he built an altar unto the Lord. God knows he'll help you, won't he? Last set of scriptures, 1 Chronicles 5. 1 Chronicles 5. 1 Chronicles 5th chapter, verse 5, beginning at verse 17. And in these chapters, it's dealing with the genealogy of each tribe. And from the 11th verse on to the 17th verse, it's dealing with the genealogy of Gad, one of Jacob's sons by the name of Gad. Verse 17 says, and these was reckoned by genealogies in the days of Joram, king of Judah, in the days of Jeroboam, king of Israel. The sons of Reuben and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh, of valiant men of Veda, men able to bear buckles and shields. When you read in the scripture where it says the Lord is our buckle and our shield, there is a little difference between a buckle and a shield. Here's the difference. In the day of Israel, a shield, you could hold it and it will cover this whole part up here. But the buckle, it was a smaller like shield. And most of the time, Israel, you could hold it in your hand like that. There's many different forms and various kinds of them. But they wore it right here on their foreheads. And when they were in battle, it would protect them from the sword. And some people had them where they were made with 3 blades on it. And not only would it protect them, but when they go to war, they could cut like that with it. So they had these men who was men that were mighty and strong. And they knew how to use the buckle and the shield and to shoot with bows. And to shoot with a bow, and skillful were they in war. They knew what they were doing. Were 4 40,703 went out to war. Massive army, right? Let's keep reading. They made war with the Hagarites. Now, the Hagarites, you remember Abraham when he went into Sarah, and she went into Hagar, and Hagar had Ishmael, and the Hagarites comes from Hagar and Ishmael, who was now enemies to Israel, which was actually their cousins. But now they're enemies against them. So they made war with the Hagarites, with Jeter and Neblish and Nodad, and they were helped against them. And the Hagarites were delivered into their hands, and all that were with them. Why? For they cried to God in battle. God Almighty. You see what they did? They asked God for His help. They didn't say, we got all these soldiers, they're well trained, and we know that we can whoop them. But they chose to ask God for His assistance. And they cried to God in battle, and He was entreated of them. He heard them because they put their trust in Him. What a blessing. And they took away their cattle, of their camels 50,000, and of their sheep 250,000, and of their asses 2,000, and of men 100,000. What a blessing. For there fell down many slain, because the war was of God. And they dwelled in their stead until the captivity. When you put your trust in God and believe that He will help you in any situation, God always has unseen help. And He's there all the time. And He will not let you down. That's all I have for today. Hallelujah.